Recording the computer. Great.
Oh,
We
nice
are
confirmation.
great. Recording in progress. This is Cabin Fever Reliever, year number two, session number two. This is a two-part class called Connections. And this is part one, taught by Mary Franson. And these are our Art to Change the World Cabin Fever Reliever classes, so anyone can take them for free from home online. Thanks everybody for being here. Mary is a writer, an editor, a professor in English, and a surfer, and lots of other things. She can share more with you. And this class kind of came about because we both studied poetry, and there's this thing called ekphrasis that I thought was just super cool, and that nobody else, unless they're in that field, really knows what it is. And Mary's like, "Oh, I know what that is." I'm like, "Oh my God, someone who knows what it is!" And I got really excited, and I'm like, "Let's do a class on this and teach more people because it's really up an artist's alley, not just poetry." So we're gonna combine those things and. I'm teaching next week, but Mary's teaching this week. I'm gonna hand it over to her and I will let you do your screen share as well.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm super stoked to have all of you here. This is actually when I think back to some of my favorite things to teach with my students, doing the ekphrastic poetry unit was always fun because we really loved looking at a lot of different pieces of art. And then really kind of what we're going to be doing tonight is exploring how to use a piece of art as inspiration to create an ekphrastic poem, which is just, again, a poem that's inspired by any work of art. It could be a sculpture, it could be a photograph, it could be a painting, a mural. So that's what we're going to dive into. One thing that I wanted to start with, though, is really just thinking about a piece of art that's inspired you. I don't know if any of you have a sheet of paper and something to write with. If you have that handy, great. If you don't, if you have a moment to go grab something to write with, I just wanted to start with a brief writing prompt that will just take a few minutes to do. So I want you to think about maybe one piece of art that has really inspired you throughout the years. Maybe it was a mural you saw somewhere. Maybe it was a really unique photograph. It doesn't even have to be by a professional artist. I have art hanging in my room that my godson Lewis has drawn for me. My favorite one that he drew, it's called a California snowstorm, and it's just green all over the paper. So it could
I
be any,
love it.
right? But I want you to think a little bit about kind of where you were when you first saw it. So if you could write down, kind of what the setting was,
Hmm.
and then how you felt. So what was kind of your mood when you saw it? Did you recognize your mood change as you were kind of taking in that art? And then if you were going to kind of describe it to us, maybe just a few lines of description. What stood out to you the most? Do you know something about the artist, the materials, anything you wanted to really describe? I'll give you just maybe a few minutes here. So it's 6:10 now. Maybe like I'll stop the clock at like 6:13. Okay, we'll do about maybe 30 more seconds. Okay, so I'll have you finish the last thought or idea that you're on.
Hello.
Okay. So one thing that I'd like us to do, hopefully towards the end, we'll have some time to go around and share a little bit of what people wrote about. If you feel comfortable with that, if you don't feel comfortable sharing, you can absolutely pass. And that actually, what you've written, that might be something that you want to return to when it's time for us to think about writing your own ekphrastic poem. But I wanted to think a little bit about kind of the creative sensibilities that artists and writers share, because I think there really are so many unique ones. If we think about the poet Mary Oliver, she's one of my absolute favorite poets, and she has three rules for living, and that is to pay attention, to be astonished, and to write about it. And often I think that's kind of the same sensibilities that we have when it comes to an artist creating a piece of art, whatever that art is. They've paid attention to something that they see in the world. There's a sense of astonishment, maybe about what they're seeing, or curiosity. And then there's that sense of wanting to bring the essence of that to the canvas or to the page, however it is they want to really recreate that for the viewer. And so one thing that I want to talk a little bit about tonight is kind of how poets have been inspired by certain works of art. So one thing, if we go to, I'm going to share my screen here for a moment. Oh, Kelly, can you give me access?
Yeah, I thought it would just, do I have to, let's see. I think, hmm. I thought you could just request it. Let me see. Advanced.
I
Share.
think you have to
Who
yeah,
can share?
I think you have to enable it.
Okay, we'll just try that. That work?
Yep, perfect. All right, good deal. Let's see if this. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I think I muted everybody though.
Oh, okay. You can unmute. That's no problem. All right. So if we look here, Thomas Cole, one of the famous landscape painters in our country's history, he has this quote. He says, "To walk with nature as a poet is the necessary condition of a perfect artist." And I actually kind of wanted to think a little bit about what that means. When you hear that, why do you think he would say that to walk with nature as a poet would be necessary for an artist?
I think because when you visualize something, like when you're walking in nature and you see like the trees and the lake or whatever, or the ocean or whatever you're seeing in nature, um, it is kind of a painting, but the poetry puts it to words, and the words paint the picture of what you might want to paint, so to say. I don't know.
Yeah, I think th that has a lot to do with it, right? It's kind of that sense of, we have an artist who's trying to pay attention to something that they're seeing in the world. There was actually a really unique painting that was done. It was commissioned for an artist named Asher Durand. I'm just going to show it to you here. So this is a painting. We have Thomas Cole here being represented as the artist, and then to the left of him, we have one of his best friends in life, a poet by the name of William Cullen Bryant. And so here, kind of, this painting is called Kindred Spirits. And so it's depicting the relationship between the two men, their friendship. And even how it's kind of showing how each of these men, they have something unique that they are contributing to the world, right? We have Cole, who is a landscape painter, and we have Bryant, who's writing poetry that really is doing what Cole is doing in his paintings, which is really kind of addressing the rapid changes that they would be seeing in the natural world at the time, and really thinking about the relationship between the past and present. So if we go back to kind of what the work of an ekphrastic poem does, if we think about, again, the poet side of it, right? We have someone who's trying to maybe imitate, describe, critique, or dramatize, reflect upon, or respond to any kind of non-literary art. So especially a piece of visual art is what we usually use. So paintings are usually the most common subjects of poems about visual art, but poems may also take on their subjects from sculptures, drawings, prints, even architecture. There's really no limit to what you can write an ekphrastic poem about if you're looking at something that you think is artistic. And so one thing that we want to try and do when we are shaping one of these poems is we don't really want to just kind of describe it. We really kind of want to give the essence of what it is to look at that visual. So we want our poem in some way to have something in its language that takes off from that visual art. Sorry, I need to let my dog in. He is scratching at the door. One moment.
Daphne, did you have Karen, did you have a question?
I can't see
Um,
the proper screen.
oh,
Oh, yeah,
No.
Mary, is the screen wrong? And then Karen might have a question.
Oh, so it says I'm screen sharing. Can people see A, B, C, D? Can you see the
No,
ekphrastic poetry explanation?
No, we're still on
No.
Pollux.
No, we can't.
I'm seeing Jackson Pollock.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
see a picture of a hand that's writing a word and then no, nothing else. I
Okay.
mean,
So
there's, yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
let me see.
Yeah, it's like a YouTube screen.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's just do this. This is typical of how my classes go. My students usually have to be like, "You're doing it right." Like, this is how we do it. Okay, let me do, let's see. Let's try this. Okay, now can we see,
Oh, yeah, okay. That's
okay,
Yes.
we got it? Okay, perfect.
That makes
No,
more sense.
Yep.
Karen, was
Okay.
that your question or did you have another question, Karen?
No, I was just going to make a comment about poets and the poetic sensibility. It reminded me of some of the Persian poets that used to talk about every pore of the body being an eye.
Mm,
And sometimes I feel that way. I feel like I'm picking up things from the environment that, I'm wondering if anybody else is feeling it. And I really feel it over the entire body, the whole body experience of its awe, I suppose.
yeah,
Yes.
that's a lovely way to describe it in a sense where I'm sure it kind of wakes you up to maybe something that you hadn't necessarily maybe even realized before. Thank you for sharing that. I think one thing that I wanted to do is just so we kind of have a sense of how artists and writers have done and kind of collaborated with certain ekphrastic poems is I wanted to show a little bit of a clip of Jackson Pollock creating one of his action paintings, and then we'll look at a poem that Frank O'Hara wrote based on that painting. So here, I'm not sure, let's see, I'm gonna stop the share and share a different screen. Okay, so here's the painting that I'm gonna have us take a look at. So hopefully you can all see that this painting by Pollock.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is one of his paintings that Frank O'Hara actually wrote a poem about. But one thing that's really unique when we think about Jackson Pollock's work, so we know he's an action painter, an abstract expressionist. A lot of his paintings were in the late 40s, early 50s. But when we look at a piece of work like this, I'm sure we've had people that we know that can look at this and say, My 3-year-old could have done this, or my 4-year-old. And sure, they probably could have. But one thing that I really like about his work is it really resists some kind of interpretive frame or our normal interpretive frame of art. And if we think about what Pollock was really interested in aesthetically, is he talks about his concern being with the rhythms of nature. So he kind of carries that through in the style of these action painting techniques. So his first real drip paintings, which is an example of what we're seeing here, he started doing these in 1947, and they were really kind of the product of a radical new approach to paint handling. So the pigment, he would apply it in really kind of an unconventional way. He'd pour it, he might drip it onto the canvas, he might flick it, he might splatter it, and he'd use all kinds of different tools to do this. And so he's really kind of building this density. So when we look at a piece of work like this, it really kind of has almost a lyrical composition to it. So we have lines and splashes of paint. Really, it almost sounds like there's a choreography going on. So it's completely unencumbered. And there's also kind of no real point of focus. If we look at this, there's no real hierarchy of elements. Again, there's no clear narrative. But if we think about what this work offers us, it's really kind of this visual dynamic of rhythmic sensations. It could be buoyant, it could be heavy, it could be graceful. We have all of these swirling, pooling lines of color. It's really evidence of a physical choreography. And for Pollock, spontaneity was a critical element of a piece like this. And if many of you, if you've seen his work, you know the massive scale to which he creates some of these paintings. This one right here is, I think it's 8 feet by 4 feet wide. And one thing I want us to think a little bit about is if we can't read a piece like this for narrative, so if we think about how would we even create this in a poetic form, our response to it, sometimes it's kind of helpful just to think about the emotions it creates in us. Pollock was creating these drip paintings during a time when President Truman was ordering work on the super bomb in the United States. And so kind of there is a sense of a little bit of fear, a little bit of fascination. And so for him, he wasn't really interested in giving us a clear image that he's painting of war, right? Or the possibility of war. But he wanted to have us feel maybe kind of that sense of chaos or turmoil or confusion. So again, his job, his painting, he wasn't really interested in particularly illustrating something, but more kind of materializing the feeling of, what was happening at that time. So what I would like each of you to do is I just want you to give me maybe a stanza, maybe 2, 3 lines, 4 lines. So when you're looking at something like this, just think about what would your response be? What do you see? And again, this could be absolutely anything. There's no real wrong answer here. And I'm not going to make you go around and share if you don't feel like sharing, but maybe some of you will. But I'll just give you, let's say, maybe 5, well, we'll do 4 minutes. So it's 6:26. How about at 6:30, we'll stop. Okay, we'll do maybe one more minute. Okay, so why don't you finish the last thought or line that you're on?
Okay.
Would anyone like to share what they came up with?
I will.
Oh, great, thanks.
Okay. First, a massive scratching and a sweeping strings of spattered matter, haphazard and explosive, yet eventually forming a nest. Gravity pulls paint to the center to start again and move finally a roof and a string to hang it by, but no floor.
Oh, I like that. Some of the things that I really, when I'm listening to that, hearing kind of even words like scratching and gravity, it felt like there's a lot of like physical thing. You could like hear something, you could feel kind of a pull of something, which I really like.
Mhm.
I remember actually hearing someone once describe one of Pollock's paintings as if we're looking at a caged animal trying to get out. And so, yeah. I like that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
Nice to,
it feels desperate to me.
yeah. Yeah, I like that. There is kind of that feeling of desperation, right? Yeah. Agency, absolutely. Does anyone else want to share?
I'll share mine.
Great, thank you.
I have scrubby scraggle scribble, zigzag over under full, drip, spill, soak, smear, overlap the hidden secret.
Mhm.
What I got?
I love that. Nice alliteration. It's got a great sound to it. It almost has kind of that quickness to it that we would feel when we look at maybe how some of those lines were even created. You get the feeling of maybe the energy of how that was created. A lot of great verbs. So again, it feels like there's action taking place. I really like that. Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
This is Laura. I would share.
Great. Thank you, Laura.
Oh, okay. Um, what a mess. A cloud of black, no tan, no white, seeing through to what's behind. The paper, a room, a pigpen swirl, a black cloud rumbling down the road and picking up all the trash it encounters and carrying it along in its arms. No way out. A spider web of filaments attached to nothing, attached to everything.
Oh, I love that. And I really especially like what you said about kind of it's like trying to see through something, almost to the other side. So what could almost be on the other side of all of these layers of paint? That was beautiful. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any other- Okay, well, one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you a quick video. It's a very old video, so I apologize. The sound is kind of dorky. I don't know why they put sound to the first part of it. You'll see what I mean in a second, but it shows Pollock actually creating one of these paintings. And the reason I wanted to do this is when you write your ekphrastic poem, let's say you know something about the artist or you know something about the way that they create. That's always something that you can add in your poem. It's kind of like a nice way of showing your connection to the artist. And you certainly don't have to, but I will show just a brief clip of him creating one of these. And then we'll talk about Frank O'Hara making a poem off that painting. First of all, can you all see him painting? Okay, it worked. Okay, good.
Oh, I think I've seen this video before.
My home is in Springs, East Hampton, Long Island. I was born in
Oh, of course.
Oh.
Sorry. Can't get by without a commercial.
Bad, skip bad.
39 years ago. In New York, I spent 2 years at the Art Students League with Tom Benton.
Mm.
He was a strong personality to react against. This was in 1929. I don't work from drawings or color sketches. My painting is direct. I usually paint on the floor. I enjoy working on a large canvas. I feel more at home, more at ease in a big area. Having the canvas on the floor, I feel nearer, more a part of the painting. This way I can walk around it, work from all four sides, and be in the painting, similar to the Indian sand painters of the West. Sometimes I use a brush, but often prefer using a stick. Sometimes I pour the paint straight out of the can. I like to use a dripping fluid paint. I also use sand, broken glass, petals, string. A method of painting is the natural growth out of a need. I want to express my feelings rather than illustrate them. Technique is just a means of arriving at a statement. When I am painting, I have a general notion as to what I am about. I can control the flow of the paint. There is no accident, just as there is no beginning and no end. Sometimes I lose a painting, but I have no fear of changes, of destroying the image. Because a painting has a life of its own, I try to let it live.
Okay, I'll stop that there. And then let's go back. Let's see. Okay, so when you were watching Pollock, was there anything that stood out to you about how he described his own method, or what creating a piece like this means to him? Oh, I think you're muted.
I got it now. I just wanted to say I really like how he said he liked his painting to talk, and just, speak for itself basically is what he's saying, may have its own language. I feel that way when I'm mixing colors, as I call it, when we're creating a painting, as other people call it. So I just like that.
Yeah. I I
Oh,
often kind of wonder like that inspiration, what's really important for an artist when they go about creating a visual. Someone else was going to say something. I didn't mean to.
I was gonna say something, but I was on mute. I like what he says about painting out of a need because
Mhm.
I relate to that very much. I feel actually kind of sick if I don't get to my studio. I feel off balance or off, just off. And I admire Pollock a lot because he does also one other thing is he really respects the autonomy of the
Mhm.
paint and that it like Anna said it has a life of its own and I
Mhm.
feel like I respect that quite a lot too and just like go in and look at what you're painting and where is it at and what it's not just about let's get rid of that line or whatever. It's about what does the painting want to do, what does it, that kind of thing. So and
Yeah.
I've always liked Pollock, so
Yeah.
throughout my
Thank you.
studies, yeah. Go ahead.
I think someone has their hand up. Let's see.
Um,
Okay.
I I thought he described himself as a midwife,
Mm.
and so it seemed to me that he willingly engages in this sacred process to bring something into birth, which is
Mm.
a state of surrender. And I think that his paintings reflect that very strongly.
Yeah. That's a really unique way of looking at it, kind of like a midwife. But yeah, you see something kind of coming alive in this. I like that comparison a lot. And it was even interesting for me the first time I watched that to hear him say that he can control the flow of the paint. Because to me, this looks kind of like not just chaotic, but kind of in a sense where there's not a real linear pattern to it, and there doesn't need to be, right? But he had an idea of what he wanted to put on the canvas and how he wanted it to look, and to have that kind of sense of control, even in something that looks almost uncontrolled. Um, and then I think someone had mentioned this too a little bit where, he says painting has a life of its own and I try to let it live. So he's not even getting in his own way, right? I know sometimes when I try and do a creative thing, if it's, creating a collage or trying to sit down and write a piece, sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. I get in my own head too much, or I kind of, it's nice when I can think about even getting out of my own way and trying to really think about what is it that I'm trying to express. And for him, he said he wanted to express his feelings rather than really illustrate them. He said technique is just a means of arriving at a statement. And to him, something like this, it makes a statement. So one
Well,
thing, oh, did someone want to say something? Hop
I
on
was
in.
gonna say something. There was a really interesting metaphor when a professor told me about Pollock. It's like go into the woods, get lost, and run into yourself.
Oh,
You
I
know,
love that.
yeah. So it's like he's going into the woods, he gets lost, and then he runs back into himself. Like he doesn't really know himself, and he's discovering somebody new, that kind of thing. And I always thought that was really apt for
Yeah.
myself. You know, it's like I don't really know what I'm talking about or what I'm trying to, and when I try to think of a theme about this is about this or this is about that, it's like really elusive. So it's hard to pin down,
Yeah.
you know.
I really like that notion though of kind of the piece of art or going in to create something and you are kind of discovering who you are in that moment or something maybe you didn't know about yourself.
Mhm.
I once heard this poet that I was studying under for a long time. He talked about how do we know when a piece of work is good or how do we know when a book is good? And, one of the things he said is it will teach you something about yourself. And so I think, what you just said there, Deb, kind of hits on that. One thing that I wanted to do is just go over briefly a poem that was made, an acrostic poem that was made based on this painting, just so you can see an example. And this is by one of my favorite poets named Frank O'Hara. Let's see. So we'll do the screen share here. Oh. Okay, can everyone see the poem itself?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So a unique thing about Frank O'Hara, a lot of his poetry has a very colloquial style. So it's kind of very much, I go here, I go there, I do this, I do that. So it's as if, when you're reading one of his pieces of work, he's kind of taking you on an adventure and narrating that for you. And one thing, a role that he had is he worked as a curator in the MoMA in New York. And so often on his lunch breaks, he'd walk around the museum and he kind of just described things that he was seeing. And so this is a poem based on Pollock in one of his paintings, but he's really narrating this as also a curator and just someone who's curious about art as they're walking around the museum. Kelly, do you mind reading this one for us? Let's just hear it out loud and then we can talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the poem.
Yes.
Thank
The
you.
title at the top is
Oh, sorry. Yep.
okay. Digression on number 1, 1948.
Thank you.
I am ill today, but I am not too ill. I am not ill at all. It is a perfect day, warm for winter, cold for fall. A fine day for seeing. I see ceramics during lunch hour by Miro, and I see the sea by Leisure. Light, complicated, Metzingers, and A Rude Awakening by Browner. A Little Table by Picasso, pink. I am tired today, but I am not too tired. I am not tired at all. There is the Pollock, white, harm will not fall, his perfect hand, and the many short voyages. They'll never fence the silver range. Stars are out, and there is sea, enough beneath the glistening earth to bear me toward the future which is not so dark. I see.
Thank you very much. So even right from the beginning, we get the tonality of one of O'Hara's works, right? I'm ill today, but I'm not too ill. I'm not ill at all. So we get kind of this almost this blurry, kind of confused state. Many of us maybe can relate to this. We wake up, we might think we feel one way, we give it 5 minutes, we might feel a completely different way. So he's kind of trying to get a sense of his own feelings throughout the day. And then in that second stanza, this is when he starts to take us through his walk through the museum, a fine day for seeing. So he's pointing out these really famous works of art that the MoMA is well known for. And then when we get to that third stanza, he's still not too energized by what he's seeing, right? He's not really moved by anything in particular. I'm tired today. I'm not too tired. I'm not tired at all. And this is the moment where his feelings start to shift. There is the Pollock, white, harm will not fall, his perfect hand, and the many short voyages. So here it's kind of that moment where he's stopping in front of this painting. He's actually feeling like he has some kind of reaction to what he's seeing. And when he says there is the Pollock, he's talking about when he mentions his hand. I'm just going to go back to the painting just for a moment. It's probably a better way to do this so you can see both the painting and the let's see. Can you see the painting? Can everyone see it?
Yeah.
You can. Okay.
It's a
That's
little
funny.
cut off on
I
the
can't
bottom,
see it.
but we can still see it.
It's on the bottom, you said, Kelly?
It's a little cut off on the bottom. Like it's only like the first 3/4, I think.
Let me do this. Let's go back to.
Yeah, that's why I thought there was no floor.
Oh, yeah, it looks cut off in the bottom again, but I mean, we
There we go.
remember kind of what the rest of it looks like, I guess.
Is that better?
A little bit better, yeah.
A little better? Okay. I just wanted to point out just one thing really quickly. I'll move this over. So here I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So when you're looking at this painting, this is what Frank O'Hara was talking about when he's talking or describing the hand.
Oh,
So you
wow.
physically see
Oh.
Pollock's handprint in the painting, and it's kind of all the way around it. So he feels like at this moment, like he's really connected to him. And so that was something that, even as, he's kind of going about his day, he's awakened by this. He all of a sudden has a sense of, he may have been feeling kind of a sense of darkness or maybe confusion about his day. But he's looking at this painting, and it kind of dramatically bolsters and re-energizes him. And all of a sudden, he's kind of seeing an imagination. He's kind of refusing to be fenced in by kind of these traditional expectations or limitations. And so, if you think about kind of the experience he's trying to give us, it's really kind of relating back to that feeling. So, if we go back to, I know we're kind of short on time, so I'm just going to go back to the poem just really briefly.
Also, that first line, I'm ill today, but that I'm not ill at all. It seems like it's canceling each other out,
Yeah,
like a
absolutely.
real ambivalence. There's
Yeah,
real ambivalence there. And
right?
I find that really interesting.
Ambivalence is a good way to put it. I like that.
Yeah.
And actually, just for the sake of time, let me do this. Let me go back to, can everyone see the ekphrastic poetry explanation?
Yep.
Okay. So I know we don't have too much time to go back to the poem, so that's why I won't have us focus much more on that. But I just wanted to give you an example of how it's been done. So there are a lot of ways, even when, we heard from people reading kind of their interpretations of Pollock's piece, everyone can see something differently. And that's what I really love about kind of the opportunity of a writer looking at a visual. You kind of see it in a way that reflects maybe something else that you might be going through, how you feel about your day, maybe your histories, maybe your associations, your relationships, anything that you may be feeling. Sometimes you start to notice you have that response to a visual based on kind of your own stuff that you're carrying around. But then you're also really trying to see, well, what is it that's unique that this artist is doing? And so when we go to kind of the guidelines for writing a piece, and I'll maybe send this to Kelly if you want to send this to participants, or if you guys want to take a screenshot, just so, even with your phone, just so you have kind of the guidelines for writing this, and then the
Yeah.
task would be to write one before the next class. So you don't have to do number one. You can really do this any way you want to. So if there is a specific painting or piece that you want to use for your poem, you can use the title of the painting to title your poem. Let's say you actually want to even go back to writing an ekphrastic poem on the visual that you were first describing when we started class. That's kind of why I had you do that, to get in the mind frame of that's something that you were asked to bring to life, right? You kind of thought about, if I was going to describe the experience of seeing that to someone, how would I want to give them an idea of what that looked like, what it felt like to see it, which is exactly what Frank O'Hara did in the poem that we looked at. And so number two, kind of again, the goal, we don't need to really describe everything that we're seeing in the painting. What do you want readers to see? This is kind of your way of bringing the painting to life. But again, you can focus on even just a small part of it if you wanted to. Number three, how are you in conversation with the piece? How does it make you feel? Does it trigger anything? What does it get you to question? So you kind of have a way of opening yourself up to, anything that comes to mind and letting that flood into the poem. So we could kind of, as a reader, we could hear those conversations, or we could hear those questions. And even if you put the questions in the poem, you don't even have to answer them. Sometimes just putting them in there is a really unique way of engaging your readers. I actually once had one of my favorite writing professors, Sister Mara Faulkner. She is an English professor at the College of St. Benedict. She used to say, never go into a piece of writing, whether it's a poem, a short story, a novel, knowing everything that's going to happen, because you kind of take that sense of curiosity. You never know what you could encounter, and you want your readers to feel like they're searching for something with you, and that kind of makes the piece come to life. And I don't know if maybe for those of you who are visual artists, maybe you feel the same way. Maybe you, when you sit down to create a piece of art, maybe you do know everything that you want to have within the painting. Maybe there's still a little bit of mystery for you. Maybe you're figuring it out as you go. But that is something that you can think about even in terms of writing this poem. Staying curious, right? From the beginning of the poem through the end. And then number 4, this is another option. You certainly don't have to do this, but so I've had students write some really unique poems where they imagine themselves in the painting, which is really kind of cool. So you could imagine yourself as part of the painting or in it, and you'd write your poem from that perspective. So just to kind of give you an example, I took this chop suey painting by Edward Hopper, and if you wanted to, let's say you were going to use this painting for your ekphrastic poem, you could write it from the perspective of this woman, or this woman, or maybe an outside perspective talking about both of them. And immediately when we start to look at this painting, we're curious, right? Who are they? What's the relationship between them? What's the feeling, that's created when we look at something like this based on the colors? Is there a certain tone that's communicated? So again, really, you can write your poem from absolutely any angle that you would like to, and it can take on any life that it would like to. So that's just another option.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like I just wrote down what you said about never go into a story knowing, or a poem, knowing what's going to happen. And I always get really kind of intimidated that I don't know what's going to happen in this story.
Wow.
And it's hard for me to get into writing that way. But if I think about it that way, it's like, oh, I can point out different things that
Yeah.
are happening or might happen, but I
Mhm.
don't have to make it like concrete.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that takes the pressure off a little bit, right? You don't have to know
Yeah, it really
everything from
does.
A to Z.
'Cause it's like I don't have to map out all of this. Like you hear about writers
Exactly.
doing that, but I hear more about writers like they get a little clue. Oh, what if this happened, or what about
Yeah.
that character? And it's just
Mhm.
it's just something I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm glad you shared that because I mean, she gave a lot of great advice in college, and that was one that always kind of stuck with me. So, yeah. Does anyone have any questions? I feel bad I didn't leave a lot of time for questions at the end, but is there anything that anyone wanted to mention or kind of, if you're thinking about the act of creating one of these, again, you can base it off of the piece of art that you started with in the beginning. You could find a different piece. But any questions so far?
I just make a comment because I'm excited about, and I don't know where this will lead me, but I've been doing more art that has interactive parts to it.
Oh,
And it would be fun to add something like this to encourage people to add and maybe have little parts of poetry that are added to a piece. It makes people look at things longer and have an interaction.
Yeah.
To
yeah.
plant a little seed. I don't know where it's going to take me, but that's kind of excited about that.
I like the idea of interactive art, like Pearl, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, Art Change World has gotten me to do a lot of pieces like that. So my
Yeah.
exhibit's going to have pieces like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see.
I remember I used to bring in canvases and paint when I would do this unit with my students. And so the first part is they would create their own painting. And then the second part was they would, someone else would have a poem that they would put
Yeah.
with the painting. And then
Neat.
sometimes like Jackson Pollock and, or I think it was Frank O'Hara, he actually collaborated with another artist and they did poem paintings. So they'd have on the canvas a piece of art, but then O'Hara would write a poem either on top of it or underneath some of the lines of paint. So it was really kind of a unique conversation taking place between the painting and the actual poem. So
Oh.
there's so many different things that you could do with this, but I really, I was excited I get very nerdy when I get to talk about poetry. So thank you for the opportunity to nerd out a little tonight. And it was really nice to have this space and share this space with all of you too. So thanks for showing up and
Yeah, this is
participating.
really inspirational.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing this to us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was wonderful.
And I know that, thank you. Kelly actually so she's gonna do part 2, and she has some really fun things in store for all of you, which maybe she'll give you a little hint of before you go. But I know she had a couple of reminders she wanted to share with you as well. So I'll turn it over to her. And thank you again, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you.
And in the next few minutes, if you guys think of any questions you want to ask her, great. But yeah, so I'm going to be sending a survey after class. It's only like 3 questions. Please fill that out. It helps us for grants and to make changes for next year. And so if you want to come next week, I think almost all of you have signed up for next week. Maybe 2 of you. But,
How do you sign up? I'm sorry.
oh, just email me. So are you Nadine then? Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks for joining us. And yeah, so next week I'm gonna have you bring some just easy supplies, like art supplies, just like that you could have at your desk, which would be like colored pencils, maybe some watercolor media, otherwise markers, something you can kind of make a sketch or draw with, because we are kind of gonna flip it around instead of writing a poem from a piece of artwork, we're gonna look at a poem and kind of create something based on that. I'm going to stop recording right now, but I do have a few more things to say.